What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, today's video, we're going to be talking about Jean Grey #1, written by Louise Simonson with art by Bernard Chang and colors by Marcelo Maiolo. This book is something that I have kind of talked about before, just not realizing that this is ultimately what I was talking about. Probably seen me put up a video talking about what if Jean Grey had remained the Dark Phoenix. Now, I'm not saying that this is exactly what happens in the story, but I was exploring the idea of what if Jean Grey never went back to being a good guy in all this, and Louise Simonson is basically giving us a taste of what that could have been like, at least from the terms of having Jean be maybe not even so much a villain, but just a more complex and nuanced character who wasn't necessarily a bad person, but did bad things. What Louise Simonson, the legendary Louise Simonson, and if you do not understand why Louise Simonson is a legend in the spectrum of comics, Louise Simonson is responsible for a lot of characters that you may not even realize. She is at least half responsible for everything you saw back in the original X Factor days, as well as a lot of stuff that happened back during the latter half of the original New Mutants run after Chris Claremont. And that's just over on the Marvel side of things. A lot of people don't even realize that the Superman character Steel was half created by Louise Simonson. If that just kind of tells you her cachet in the realm of comics, Louise Simonson is taking us from the moment that Jean Grey is about to die in the Hellfire Gala 2023 one-shot. She is still reeling from Moira McTaggart's 50d6 sneak attack, but as she is shuffling off this mortal coil, she's going all the way back to the beginning. Telepathically, her mind is somehow reaching back into the past and seemingly influencing decisions that could or should have been made in the past. She's revisiting the moment that she first learned about her powers. She's determining whether or not it was a good idea to have Charles repress her telepathic abilities back in the day. And she's also rethinking the decision that was made by her as well as the rest of the original X-Men, Cyclops, Iceman, Beast, and Angel, to have all the memories and knowledge of the future that they gained when present-day Beast had gone back in time and plucked the 5-piece original recipe X-Men from the past. When the original X-Men went back to what was, to them, their actual present, their minds were wiped. They had no knowledge of the future. However, those memories were still technically there. Jean had learned from the mutant Manon how to keep those memories in, I guess, what you could technically refer to as a mental buffer. The memories and knowledge wouldn't be anything you could readily access at any one point in time, just willy-nilly, but once you would close the loop on your timeline, once you had reached the present, the moment that those memories would come full circle, those memories and that knowledge would suddenly become available to you. It's why Cyclops had no memory of his time as a champion back when his younger self had come to the present day and then had gone back. He didn't get those memories until he got old enough to actually have physically had them. Hence why all of a sudden Cyclops is totally broken up over the notion of Ms. Marvel having been killed in the Amazing Spider-Man series. In this story, Jean asked the question, what if they kept the memories? What if they didn't wipe their knowledge and memories of the future away and just tried to play things by the book? What if Jean took that knowledge upon herself, knowing who would be the villains, who would be the heroes, knowing ahead of time which people would actually become mutants and whether or not she should reach out to them ahead of time and build the X-Men's ranks even faster. Even taking into account knowing who Magneto is today and who he would or could eventually become. That part is a little weird because you would think that if Jean had knowledge of who Magneto would ultimately become, instead of just mentally lobotomizing him as she does in this issue, you would think maybe she would just try to rewrite his mind to just be who he was in the present day back then. But she doesn't do that. She just mentally lobotomizes him. All in all, I think the idea of just wiping people's memories, going into their heads, forcing them to like the video because you want to like the video, you've made it this far into the video, so of course you want to like the video, and also rewriting your memories to make you think that you're subscribed to the channel and that you've hit the notification bell that will always let you know when I'm posting new videos about X-Men as well as other comics from Marvel and DC and wherever else. That is just unethical. And you know what? It's so unethical that I'm wiping your memory right now that I've even rewrote your memories of any of this ever happening. And once I snap my fingers, you won't even remember this conversation. That's kind of what the issue is. While this isn't necessarily present day Jean acting out any of this, what she's actually doing is that she's looking at all of the possibilities. So where a lot of people would probably get upset and think, oh, Jean would never do something like that. Present day Jean, knowing what she knows about all of these things happen. And the truth of the matter is, that's actually not the case. At least that's not the way that I took it. Over the course of the series, I think it's safe to say we'll just be watching Jean, watching the events of all of these different probabilities unfold. All of this is an aid to will herself back to life. Now, for those unfamiliar, this isn't something new. Mutant resurrection was an amazing thing that was added to mutant life that made it to where if you just so happened to be on the wrong bus and it was set on fire, you could be brought back to life. If you so happened to have lived on the wrong island and it got waylaid by sentinels, you could be brought back to life. If you happen to live in the wrong sewer, you could be brought back to life. And that's something that's, while it's been a luxury for mutants as of late, it's something that Jean has been able to do for a long time. She can do it for herself. She doesn't need mutant resurrections. She doesn't need Krakoan eggs. She doesn't need Hope Summers coming in with Cerebro, putting her memories back in place. She doesn't need any of that. Jean can resurrect herself at will. This is why when she died at the Hellfire Gala, it really wasn't that big of a deal. If anything, it was more of an inconvenience than anything else. Now, if you're asking me to show my work, I can. She has actually resurrected herself on multiple occasions, but two that I will point out, and mind you, these are two incidents where she resurrected herself without the aid of the Phoenix Force. One of those instances was in X-Men Phoenix End Song number 5. At that particular point in publication, Jean Grey was clinically dead and frozen in ice. She was not alive, and she didn't have the Phoenix Force at the time. And yet, she willed herself back into being alive again. No Phoenix Force whatsoever. Now, I know what some might be thinking. Maybe there was some residual Phoenix Force in there from when Emma Frost had the Phoenix Force and Jean didn't. Maybe there was just a little taste of Phoenix Force in there, and that is why Jean was able to bring herself back. But I can give you even more receipts. Let's go back to the time-displaced X-Men, the 5-piece original recipe X-Men, back when Hank had brought them back from the past into the present. That version of Jean Grey, the young Jean Grey, was able to will herself back into existence after being disintegrated. She used nothing more than her own psionic energy, no Phoenix Force whatsoever. She was able to reconstitute her entire body immediately after being disintegrated, and that was a young teenage Jean Grey. And if you're sitting here thinking, well, wait a minute, she doesn't know how to do that yet. No, go back to my earlier statement about how all the wibbly wobbly timey-wimey stuff worked. Jean has all the memories of everything that happened during that period of her being a time-displaced mutant. She has all those memories. She knows exactly how to do it. I think the issue is just more the fact that it's not just about coming back. It's about getting the answer to undo all of this. This is why all these crazy things are happening, and it is pretty wild. Jean is completely out of pocket in this series so far, in just the one of 4 issues that are going to be released. It's a very interesting take considering everything that Jean had literally just chastised Cyclops for over the course of Jerry Duggan's X-Men series. The fact that he wanted to eradicate the Brood just because they were so awful, and in this, Jean is just unilaterally wiping people's minds, rewriting their memories, taking mutant children from their parents, regardless of how good or bad those parents treat said children, and even going as far as to unilaterally killing just about any and every potential human threat to mutant society, going after people like William Stryker, Bolivar Trask, and so on and so forth, and just eliminating the threat wholesale. And this comic is basically making a case for why you can't just do that. It's not so much that the comic is glorifying that Jean is doing these things. What Louise Simonson is trying to get across is when you destroy or you kill a symbol of hatred, a symbol of oppression, you don't just get rid of it because you got rid of the one person. When you get rid of that symbol of oppression, if you kill William Stryker, that doesn't mean that the purifiers are just done right there. Just because you get rid of Bolivar Trask doesn't mean Sentinels don't get created. Yeah, sure, it's a nice start, but you might just encourage something worse to come along after it. If your plan in doing this was to get people to think that they don't have to fear you, you have gone about it the incredibly worst possible way, because all you're gonna do is force people to start to see you as someone to fear. And then it doesn't help the fact that over the course of her going out and just wiping everyone's memories, telling lies about what it is that the X-Men are there to do and why these things are happening, covering up deaths that are honestly caused by young mutants having their powers emerge from out of nowhere. Instead of just explaining the situation as it actually is, she creates a lie that ends up getting uncovered. And it's one of those deals Grandma used to always tell me. She used to always tell me what's done in the dark always comes to the light, and that the only way to cover up a lie is with another lie. And that's what this book focuses on a great deal. All the lies that Jean puts into people's heads, they all get uncovered eventually, and then they have to be recovered up with yet another lie. And even if these lies are for the greater good, it's still gonna look ugly when people find out that what they were told, regardless of what it was for, that it was a lie. And then that just takes away the trust. And then watching how Jean is turning on the people who are supposed to be her closest friends, it just shows you that keeping that knowledge was probably not the best idea. And I feel like Jean is gonna slowly realize that over time, because at the end of this book, one of the things she says, we were right to let the skein of time unwind without entanglement until, and then she cuts off because she has discovered a new moment. And that particular moment is the day she received the Phoenix Force. That moment in 1976 in Uncanny X-Men number 100, where Jean tried to pilot that NASA space shuttle, and ultimately she sacrificed herself to save the humans that were on board as well as her fellow X-Men, and thus she came into contact with the Phoenix, and the rest is history. Maybe Jean thinks that the Phoenix is the reason that all of this has gone wrong, and maybe not even just having the Phoenix, but maybe losing control of the Phoenix the way that she did during the Dark Phoenix saga. Maybe Jean is gonna try and figure out how to maintain that power without losing her whole damn mind. If you enjoyed this video, do the YouTube thing, like, share, comment, subscribe, and make sure you tap that notification bell because I'm always putting out new videos throughout the week. Plus, I live stream every Saturday, so hit that bell button. That way you don't miss anything. Until next time, let me know what you thought about Jean Grey number 1. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.